had the reputation as being one of the most influential education reformers of all time. He was born on March 22, 1928 in Memphis, Tennessee. This is also where he was raised. He attended the Todd School in Woodstock, Illinois. Ed Hirsch Jr. eventually headed off to Cornell University and then on to Yale University, where he studied English. He started his career off by being a Yale professor and a scholar of the Romantic poets. He later moved to the University of Virginia. Hirsch Jr. was the professor honoratus of education and humanities. He also became the department chairman and was the head of the composition program. Not only was Hirsch Jr. professor, but he was an author of several acclaimed books on education issues. Some of the books were Cultural Literacy, which was a bestseller, The Schools We Need and Why We Don't Have Them, The Knowledge Deficit and Making of Americas. He was an elected member of both the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the International Academy of Education. He also served on the Research Advisory Board of the U.S. Department of Education. Hirsch Jr. received the Benile Quest Award for Outstanding Contribution to Education from the American Federations of Teachers. Ed Hirsch Jr. published The Philosophy of Composition, which was an investigation onto the question of what makes writing more or less readable. For 3 years, Ed Hirsch Jr. would argue that he thought that schools should teach a specific curriculum so that children would be able to understand what writers and speakers take for granted. Hirsch Jr. was doing research on a written composition and said that he was shocked into reform. The research that he conducted was at a couple of colleges in Virginia. He discovered that while it is important how clear and easy a text is to read, it is even more important that the student had already had background knowledge of the subject. He came to realize that the African American students at a community college could read as well as University of Virginia students when it was about a topic that was regularly discussed. But when it came to leave surrender to grant, they could not read it. They had not been taught what they needed to know in order to understand ordinary text addressed to a general audience. After Hirsch Jr.'s discovery, he developed a groundbreaking concept of cultural literacy. He realized that in order to completely understand reading, you don't only need formal decoding skills, but you also need to have a full background knowledge. Ed Hirsch Jr. said, "We will achieve a just and prosperous society only when our schools ensure that everyone commands enough shared knowledge to communicate effectively with everyone else." He founded the Core Knowledge Foundation in 1986. It is an independent, non-profit, and nonpartisan education. The Core Knowledge is a reform movement that is based on a grade-by-grade core of common learning in order to ensure a sound and fair elementary education. It insists that in order to attain academic excellence, greater fairness, and higher literacy, early education curriculum should be specific, shared, and sequenced. A year after he founded the Core Knowledge Foundation, he published Cultural Literacy, What Every American Needs to Know. In this book, Hirsch Jr. argues that the children in the U.S. are being deprived of the basic knowledge that would enable them to function in contemporary society. Ed Hirsch Jr. wanted our schools to be more than just memorizing and getting by in school. He wanted us to know and truly understand the information that we were being taught. He started a reform in order to fix our school system. There was definitely a lot of people that were against what he wanted because they believed in multicultural education, but the majority agreed with Hirsch. Business owners were starting to see that the people that they hired were not as well as educated as he thought they would be. Because of Ed Hirsch Jr. in school, we focused more on really learning the information and getting more out of it instead of memorizing what we need to know, passing the test, and then forgetting everything the next day. He also created the Core of Knowledge Foundation, which gave elementary children an opportunity that they would not have normally had. It has improved teaching because the teachers now make sure that the students really know what they are teaching them and not just teaching them skills to be able to read the text and get a good grade. It can help improve our society because we will become more educated and be able to remember more of what we learned. I have personally been impacted by Ed Hirsch Jr. because of his reform. I have had the opportunity to learn more in depth the information in school and improve on my reading comprehension. In school, you can really tell the difference between when a teacher is just giving you information to memorize and when they're truly trying to help you learn it. It really does make a difference when you're reading a text because if you don't have any previous knowledge of what is going on in text, it is much more difficult to understand and comprehend.